What's up, YouTube? This is the Fruitful Goddess 1111, and I'm coming in with another video, Facts of Life. And this video is titled Being Evicted During a Pandemic. That was one of the most worst experiences for me that I ever experienced in my life. For starters, it was scary. The coronavirus was going on, and it was like right in the brink of it. Like it had just recently happened, and it was heavy. A lot of people was dying during the time, and I have, my 4 kids, and I have my little 2 babies. That's 1 and 2, and having to be inside and kept up inside all that time without being able to go out and really take the kids out to be able to exercise and do what they needed to do and things of that nature. It was kind of tough, and it was tough on me. And dealing with having a job and work was slow, and working on a first come first serve basis. If you don't, the way the job operated was, if you don't get an order, then if you don't hurry up and choose the order, the other employees had the option to accept the order before you did, and that's who got the job. And every day you had to go to work and hustle in that kind of way to try to make a check, because times was hard, and then you couldn't get through the unemployment because the lines was super busy, and every time you tried to reach out to them, it was just like you was just calling a number that was never going to pick up. So that means that I wasn't able to pay and cover my rent. And then I kept being consistent, kept on hustling to get an order, and I finally was able to make a little money during the pandemic to, keep me going after I had finally got through the unemployment and applied for that, and I didn't receive that at that time, but I still had money, for my rent. And my landlord wound up trying to evict me in the process of me waiting to get a job and me waiting on to get through the unemployment. And they just couldn't be patient, for me to make the money that I needed to pay my rent. And it was like harassing me every day, and I'm steady telling them I'm trying, I'm trying to get the money. I don't have the money to pay the rent. Like, nobody really working, it's a real pandemic going on. How am I gonna try to find a job? You guys are lucky and blessed to have a job right now while y'all coming at me about rent money. The way they were nagging me, I wish I had the money on site, but I didn't. I had to work for it. And I tried to explain that to them. And they wound up evicting me, and they wound up setting up a court date for me to get evicted, and we went before the judge, me and the property manager. And as soon as we walked up there, mind you, the pandemic had just started, and they had so many people outside with masks on, and I had to bring my babies to court with me and things of that nature. And when we went, we had to sit in court. Thank God my kids behaved for a while. But before we uh, left the courthouse, they was starting to, get a little agitated. So when we walked up to the judge, when he called my name, the judge told them, okay, well, he didn't even really give me or her a chance to speak. She was just saying that she wanted to follow through with eviction, and um, I really didn't get a chance to say nothing. The judge looked at her and he said, well, didn't, like I'm going to use Red Cross for example, like a Red Cross, paid the apartments, the rent on the tenant's behalf, and she shook her head yes. So she was taking me to court to evict me, and the whole while, someone's a sponsor, in other words, they had covered the rent for the tenants, but they didn't tell that to the tenants. And there was this harassing me for money, putting pressure on me, anything to do, give me this, give me that, and I didn't have anything to give them. And by the time we went to court in June, I did have money to give them. I had started working, and I had my checks to give to them, and they refused to accept the rent money. After the judge granted me more time to pay the rent, he told her, grant her more time to pay the rent, and we left on those terms. I was, to meet her in the office to pay the rent, and when I arrived, she wasn't there. So so I went the next day, and they were closed. And they were closed for like the next 3 to 4 days. And to make a long story short, when I did go in there to pay my rent, she actually, I believe it was like one of the supervisors for the company, um, for the company, yes, and they refused to accept the rent. They were looking at me like I was crazy, and it was like, no, we're not going to accept the rent. And I said, well, the judge granted me more time to pay the rent. I had to make the money. And she was like, no, you were supposed to come the same day. And I explained to her that I did, and, things of that nature. And they just really shut me down. And they shut me down in the worst way, because they told me that, she told me that it was best that I held on to my rent money, because they weren't going to accept it for the rent. And I asked about another court date, because the judge granted me time, and she told me it wasn't going to be another court date. And to me, she was very rude, very, very rude, and she acted in an obnoxious manner to say that she was like, a higher upper and within the company. But to make a long story short, I had my renter's insurance with Allstate, and something happened in the apartment to where everything started flooding, and the tenants was, the maintenance wasn't coming out fixing on the apartments. They weren't doing anything. Like if you put in a request, a order request form, they wouldn't respond to it, and it was just a horrible experience for me, because I really wasn't used to staying in an apartment, and they really, really was always had an excuse when it came down to maintenance. So it was like, it was like really a place that you really didn't even want to be at or stay at. And I had all kind of things going on with my unit, and I had A1 coverages with Allstate. And when all of this occurred in my apartment, and at that time my babies were younger, they were like one, and my little baby was a couple of months, and she was just learning how to crawl. And every time she would try to crawl from the room to the living room, her shirt would be soaking wet. All of my kids' clothes got mildew. The ceilings were leaking and things of that nature. It was like a disaster in there. It was like the worst place I ever stayed in, and they wasn't coming out doing the repairs or anything. So I called my insurance companies for Allstate. And when I spoke with Allstate. They came out and they sent the adjusters out, and they saw all the damages, and they took pictures, and they was telling me that I had to put everything in writing. Um, and I'm like, okay, you have a whole laptop, you can't put everything in there. No, we can't take that much. I said, okay. So the next thing you know, um, like they kept switching adjusters on me and things of that nature, and they finally told me that they weren't going to be able to pay out on my claim, and they weren't going to be able to pay out on my claim, and they asked me how was my rent and things of that nature, and I'm like, okay, what do my rent have to do with me calling, putting in a complaint about, this flooding that's going on inside of my unit that I'm supposed to be covered on. I had real good coverages, and the person who signed me up, he had originally told me that he made an example like, this is A1 coverages, and if this, he used for example, if anything was to happen in your home and someone slip and fall, in which someone did, and hurt themselves and injure themselves, they'll be covered under your insurance. And then you have all the you have rentals insurance, you have insurance if anything was to happen with your unit. We'll move you all into a hotel and pay the fees until the services get fixed. Not fixed, I'm sorry. If the service, if they come out and do the services, meanwhile they'll place us in a hotel room while they do the repairs. And but that's not what happened. When I called in and make the claim, they denied me, and they denied my claim, and they went as far as calling my front office and asking the office, about my personal business, like about my rent. I feel like they were out of bounds, and I feel like they were out of line. I feel like, there was none of that was discussed during the process of me signing up for the rental insurance. They never told me, they never verbally told me that if you don't pay your rent, then you wouldn't be covered. My rent had nothing to do with, what happened. So they denied me, and to make a long story short, they got the constables to come and throw us out. And when they threw us out, I had just recently purchased, some new beds and things of that nature. They threw all of my stuff out, like all of my brand new stuff. They threw it out. They broke it up. They broke it beyond repair. They just threw all my stuff out like we were dogs. And when they came in and treated me and my family so bad, they treated us so bad like we committed a crime, and they refused to take the money. I had the rent money. I had the rent money. I had the rent money saved up, and they refused to take the money. So I had to go to a hotel, and then when I called my rentals insurance company and I asked them, would they assist us, and my hotel part of the insurance policy, and they denied me for all of that. They said due to me not paying my rent, my claim wasn't payable, which had nothing to do with me getting renters insurance. The guy that processed my payment advised me that I had coverages all outside of my home. If I was to go and place my stuff in the storage in a whole nother state, then all of that would be covered. My vehicle was covered. Everything in my vehicles was covered. Anyone in my home had coverages. They promised me all this coverage, and I paid for all those different coverages, and I got nothing out the deal but evicted, and all of my stuff ruined beyond repair. Like, it was trash. They went in and absolutely trashed my apartment and threw all my stuff out. And then the constable that came out, he was very, very rude. Very rude to me and my family. And um, once we left out, he didn't even want to let me grab anything for my kids, no clothes, no nothing. And once they started taking the stuff out and I started trying to grab stuff, he directed me to the corner. He was like, well, you can't grab anything. You can't take anything with you, and while they have the office officials um, in the dwelling. And I said, okay. He said, come back in 1 hour. When I arrived in 1 hour, my 73-inch TV was gone. My table was gone. And I paid a lot of money for that table. And they just did what they wanted to do with my stuff. They broke all of my stuff up and my stuff was missing. And they didn't even care. They just left it out there like we wasn't nothing. And then I had to spend everything that I had on hotel room fees. And then when I couldn't cover the hotel room fees, me and my kids, my family, we had to sleep in our vehicles. It's very hot where we are. So that means we had to have the vehicles running all night long, running the AC. Sleeping wherever, sleeping on the streets. Allstate refused to give me one single dollar. And that really, really made me unstable with my kids. Imagine like living in a car with your kids. While you have your kids looking at you like, what are we doing here? Like, just crying all night, sleeping in car seats, being uncomfortable. Nowhere to go. Nobody to call on, nobody to turn to. And we just brushing our teeth in the car, getting dressed in the car, and I do that and go to work. I try to give me a little rest, and then, I get up and clean us up and, comb their hair and things of that nature, and then I go to work. Then after work, we have to find somewhere else to sleep at. Imagine that. I think Allstate I just think that it's not a good company.